One day I went to a football match with some school chums, and the National Front was standing outside the football ground selling newspapers. And I thought, it was just meant to be. I was 14, 15. I thought, this is just meant to be. So I didn't go into the match. I stayed talking to these incredibly strange, to be honest. They felt strange then. They're definitely strange by today's standards. And there were just 4 men stood there, and they spoke to me for hours. We just stood outside. I think we went to a pub and had a pint. They bought me a pint.
Which is the recruitment process.
I think I think so. And we spoke for a couple of hours about what I believed and what about them, and they answered the questions. Really, really dour but quite serious people, And I think I wrote in the first book, if you didn't know what the books were, you'd think they were well read. But these people could explain everything. So what about me? What about school? What about work? And they just say, listen, son, you're going to get nothing until we've deported all the black people.
Right. So it's again the way that radicalisation takes a hold, because they've put so much effort. The radicaliser has put so much effort into it that the person trying to fight it hasn't. I mean, it's just normal. I think it wouldn't be necessary.
Fancy going to a pub, having a pint, and just having a conversation with each other. And No, I can't remember any time previously to that male adults sitting down and just talking to me about the way that the world works. And here they were, and they were so, obviously they weren't, but to me they were so knowledgeable about stuff.
I see.
They knew everything. They had a car, they had a girlfriend, they had jobs.
This is what to describe it then is ordinary and extraordinary at the same time. What you did was extraordinary, even by the standards of the time. Even your racist mates at school were saying you've gone too far. It was extraordinary. You make it sound so ordinary,
but it is.
Which is why you're good at what you do now.
I think so.
Because
I'm never sure. I don't.
It's not like we're not looking at a rare specimen under a microscope. We're looking at something that could happen in the right circumstances to anybody.
I just walked up to 4 blokes selling a newspaper. And I said, I've really been desperately trying to join your organisation. And they said, do you want to come for a pint? And bang.
And you're 15 now?
Yep.
Many of us don't grow up in environments where we're even aware of the idea of not liking someone because of where they come from. It seems that you did grow up in an environment where, whether you realise it or not, that was...
Well, I think I only met my grandfather 3 times.
Right.
And my mother had a very poor opinion of him.
Yes.
Very poor opinion of my father too, and so we were just, that part of the family, the Irish part of the family, wasn't alien to us, but we were distant from it.
Okay.
We were distant from it, and I think partly then in my search for identity or my search for belonging was the absenteeism of the absence of a father, and then looking for male role model, the strong man in your life who leads by examples and can, change light bulbs, all that kind of stuff, which is very important. According to my missus, very important. A man can change a light bulb. Led me on that sort of adventure. Where can I find strong men? Okay. Where can I find men that will open, kick doors in, as happened in the National Front? Where can I find those sort of people? And one of the attractions to the National Front in the 1980s was you grew up under the spectre of it. Every wall had NF on it. I went to school in Greenwich, in Kidbrooke in South East London. Every wall had NF on it, and you grew up knowing what the National Front was. People would talk about the National Front. I'm National Front. They would identify as National Front. It was more than a tiny little political party. It was just an ideology. I'm NF, and I saw that. I saw that it was. I guess the same way people are attracted to flashy trainers or particular brands of clothing. I saw this thing on the wall, and I knew straight away this was this organisation, wrongly of course. I believe that this organisation, this dangerous organisation, would somehow elevate me. I would leave poverty and sadness, and what my shrink calls I have a deep sadness in my life.
Right.
This deep sadness, and I would. I'd be something special, and I would be better than everybody else. Because youngest of 4 brothers, right? You
back of the queue.
You're always back of the queue. By the time I got a jumper, it had been worn to about 15 village fates already, But perfectly happy childhood, but I
but there's something underpinning it.
And I was a misery, and my brothers didn't go looking or searching for those things.
How interesting. And also, this is before toxic masculinity was even a phrase, and yet you've already conflated the far right with this warped notion of what it means to be a man.
And let me tell you about toxic masculinity. I mean, in my house, the person who did everything, cooked, cleaned, she could lay tile, she'd laid carpet, she decorated, she hung wallpaper, was my mother.
Wow.
She was the, not masculine, because she's a very feminine, beautiful woman, but my mother showed us all, as kids, women can do anything. And then we saw it in her life. In her life later on, she was made redundant at 58 because she was the woman in the company. You know, women don't need to get the full pension, all that kind of stuff. Right. So, yeah, the search for masculinity, and of course, I found the toxic masculinity, but also I was also very, very conscious and very, very aware women can do anything, and men ignore that at your peril. Or fight to your detriment.
So there's no simple sort of, and it's interesting you mentioned.
There's nothing. Listen, there's nothing textbook. People always want to say this. You know, did someone come along and twist your mind?
I'm so glad you've picked up on that.
And this is one of the things people say about extremists, and it's like, and one of the things I say now. Can you tell me why? Well, I know the answers. Well, I'm sure you know the answer. Why? Can you tell me why someone white, living in poverty, feeling that they've been robbed or let down, why shouldn't they be racist? What answers have you got to it? That's the battle of anti-racism, is to not just plug those gaps, but to drag people up into and also build a civil and civilized society. And so people like this narrative that little Johnny was just sitting at home one day watching the Teletubbies, and suddenly a Nazi appears on television and changes his life. It just doesn't always work like that. But for me, I looked for and I found the answer. I found the wrong answer.
How old are we now?
I think probably when I was about 12 or 13.
Pretty young. And
don't forget, this is before the internet. I have to keep stating this.
Yes.
I drew those conclusions.